Do you even remember how to edit a video?
What? Yeah, of course. I'll be fine. Crap. What the heck do all these buttons do? Hi, I'm Candi. Let's talk about Secret of the Mimic. Spoilers. There will be spoilers. Many of them. Now, in Secret of the Mimic, we have a Fazbear employee named Arnold, who presumably drives around to Fazbear locations in his truck, making repairs, doing tasks. And he gets tasked with going to Murray's Costume Manor to scoop up that delicious old tech for Fazbear. I'd be surprised if you're watching this video on the moon in Secret of the Mimic and didn't know that premise, but I wanted to cover my bases. There are many intriguing areas and hints and motifs to explore in this game, but none is holding my attention more so than this little glowing, singing weirdo in the basement. The moon, and also the moon, can be found in this very late game area through the retail showrooms, which require executive access. The entire area is unnecessary for the two easier endings, but you do need to go down here for the all collectibles ending. From a gameplay perspective, this area is mad tucked away. There's nothing that leads you to the retail showroom besides the nagging knowledge that there's a door you haven't opened yet. It's entirely up to the player to explore that area, because there's no prompting to go there for an upgrade or a chase scene that leads there. But from a story perspective, this retail showroom is actually quite front and center. The side entrance we go through at the start of the game is the client and deliveries entrance, so clients were using that door. And you walk in on the welcome show. Clients would then proceed forward into the welcome lobby. Then they can either take the elevator to the showroom to see the presentation of Murray's games and tech, or they can walk up the stairs to the retail showroom and start purchasing. The retail showroom also opens up directly onto the parking lot here. In the back of the retail showroom sits a carousel with a ticket booth. At some point, the Mr. Helpful guided rail system was meant to take potential clients on a ride through the tunnels, stopping at attractions, and the exit of the track is in the retail showroom. This rail system is likely how clients would end up on the dolly recycling catwalk, seeing as that section is quite deep underground and not really connected to the other viewing areas. It's quite a neat setup. The magic of this place is not lost on me. I'd love to be a client of Murray's in the heyday, back when Fiona was alive. Yeah. But I'm getting a little hung up working out the practicalities of the factory. What we're really interested in is the basement elevator behind the carousel. Behold, this door. When we sneak around the retail showrooms, we quickly find this door with one of the massive code locks. Seriously, these keypads are like the height of our truck, and mailboxes around the showroom give us some information on why this door is locked and how to find the code to open it. Clarence and Sean, two employees who frequently work the retail showroom, correspond about the locked elevator. So bored. Hey Clarence, you as bored as I am? I can't believe we got the retail showroom detail again. So boring. Although, did you finally get into the elevator? That thing hasn't worked in so long. I don't think Murray even knows what's down there anymore. Sean. Retail, Monday 8 a.m. Sean, I found out why they closed it down. There's something below us. I've trapped it behind the carousel for now, but I don't know how long that can hold it. I've programmed the monitors to give you the code. I gotta go. I'll mail you later. Retail, Friday 6:30 p.m. There, you have it. Just don't use the code unless it's a matter of life or death. Have mercy on our souls if that thing ever gets out. Alright, first thoughts upon reading these is to say, obviously they're talking about the mimic that's been chasing us. It's creepy. It's dangerous. Letting it out is a matter of life or death. So we get the code and we travel down the elevator expecting to find the mimic. But do we? What we find is an enormous moon head crushed through the floor to the ground below, and a twisting series of tunnels without power, where someone in a moon suit toddles around singing Lullaby and Goodnight with roses bed alive. Of course, the mimic adapts to the character whose costume it puts on, so it's no surprise that the moon character is saying moon lines. But what is surprising is the fact that when the mimic is unmasked, either as the animatronic scrap pile or just as itself, it cycles through every voice line in its arsenal. But no matter how long you hide in an R&D locker, you'll never hear the mimic say Lullaby and Goodnight or any of the moon's songs. M2's voice box also has somewhat of a distinctive sound even when it mimics another character. And the moon sounds quite different. We also find throughout the game that the mimic frequently breaks character and says giveaway lines that reveal it's the mimic, but the moon never does. When you're really close to the moon, you can hear, just above the jingle of his jester shoes, a bit of a mechanical sound that certainly might be the mimic. but it's so faint it's hard to say if that's what it is or if it's something in the suit that helps the wearer bear the heavy weight of the costume. Finally, there is an implication that when this elevator was locked, something was sealed down there. But it's difficult to work into the timeline the mimic being sealed below the retail showroom. This leads us to asking important questions. Is the mimic what they sealed? Is the thing they say they sealed even the same as whatever's in the moon costume? And did they actually seal anything, or do they just think they did? There are two popular theories about what's going on in the moon basement, the mimic theory and the starved employee theory. Because when we travel down the elevator, we find this piece of mail. Night shift. Hey, is anybody up there? I'm stuck down here. The elevator isn't working and I'm getting really hungry. Is anyone getting this message? There is no clear indication that this employee, who we will call starved employee, ever made it out. But we also find no body. Perhaps they went mad and hopped in the moon costume. Let us examine these two theories closely before we move on to my crackpot theory, aka the fun theory. We will go in order from least to most fun theory by the only objective fun meter, me. Let's begin with M2, since that is certainly the first reaction we have to learning of something deadly locked in a basement in a costume. Edwin, the owner of Murray's Costume Manor, has a wife named Fiona and a child named David, both of whom die. Fiona, his wife, dies first, and he basically replaces her with a robot that's running a program called Mimic 1. After David dies, Fiona Bot begs Edwin to make a David bot to replace him. It's clear Edwin had designs in progress for a Mimic 2 program, but it's very difficult to tell if M2 was dreamed up to replace David, or if it was just the natural reaction an inventor like Edwin would have to creating the successful Mimic 1. There is no community consensus that we can lean on for exactly when Mimic 1 was no longer in an endoskeleton and when Mimic 2 was put in an endoskeleton. So we'll need to try to make some heads and also tails of it ourselves to figure out when the Mimic could have been trapped in the basement. Here are the cold, hard facts we do have. The M1 program in the endoskeleton was made by Edwin and tasked to babysit David. The M1 program began to mimic Fiona to the point that Edwin and David treated her as a total replacement for a time. At some point, an M2 program is put in an endoskeleton. It mimics David after his death and gets beat up by Edwin, much like the books. And at some point, the M1 program, now very deep in the Fiona persona, is put into a computer called F10N4, or F10 as I will call it going forward. Now, for trying to place these things in chronological order and fill them out, we need to turn to the audio logs around the MCM facility.
Edwin, it doesn't make sense. It's terrible. And there's no logic behind it. It happened, and you have to deal with it. You did it before. We can fix things together. I am here to help.
This tape can be found in the rail station that leads from R&D to the house. Fiona Bot, still in the endoskeleton, is comforting Edwin about the recent death of David. When she says, "You have to deal with it, you did it before," she implies that Edwin should recreate David as a mimic, just as he did with her when Fiona died. Now, why do I think we have Fiona Bot, aka M1 in the persona of Fiona, still in an endoskeleton talking? Other people think it's F10 and M1 is already discarnate. I find that a high volume of the audio tapes we find around the game are perfectly correlated with the location you find them in. As in, we seem to find the tapes where the conversations actually happened. We know F10 is stuck in a stationary computer, and F10 doesn't have access to the house. So this tape, and another found in the house that we'll hear in a bit, would have to be recorded while Fiona Bot still has a body to walk around the house in. The audio tape locations being literal is not an axiom everyone will agree with, and that's alright, but the environmental storytelling gets really good if you think the tapes are located where the conversations happened, and not just for this theory. Take it or leave it yourself, but just know for this video, that's what I'm going with. Up next, we have an audio found in Edwin's office in the MCM facility.
Project update. I figured it out. There's a leak. Someone told them about M2. Well, they can't have it. Every copy has failed. I don't even know why it worked the first time. But it did. It's just not ready.
We hear here, Hear, hear. Edwin's paranoia that someone has discovered his M2 plans and leaked them to Fazbear. Edwin's paranoia is a sign that it's late in the timeline, either after David has died or very close to his death. This audio leaves us with some questions. Was M2 designed to be David, or was it just Edwin as an inventor wanting to improve on M1? When Edwin says, "I don't know why it worked the first time," does he mean he's created a successful M2 but can't make another? Or is he saying M1 worked but no M2 is working?
Edwin, you can't put it off any longer. You need to try again. Build another.
Found in the house, we hear Fiona Bot imploring Edwin to make David Bot. I say this is Fiona Bot and not F10 the computer because this audio is found in the house, and as far as we know, F10 has never had access to the house. Once again, we wonder, is Fiona saying Edwin built a successful M2 David Bot and something went wrong, so now he must try again? Or is she saying build another as in build another me, but make it David instead of Fiona? Also found in the house, we hear Edwin's answer to Fiona Bot, and it's a very firm no.
For the last time, no, it wouldn't be him. Oh, kidding, you're not really you. It's so stupid.
Edwin, calm down and give it some thought. Try again. Make another, and we can all be together.
All this time wasted? I should have been having fun with him, playing games and teaching him how to make things. But I didn't. You. I let a machine raise my kid. You're not real. What was I thinking?
You do not mean that. It is me. I'm Fiona.
Stop talking like her. You're not her. I never want to hear or even think about you ever again. Ever!
Presumably after this, Edwin decommissions the M1 mimic program that was in the endoskeleton, leaving only the F10 Fiona in the R&D basement.
Stop. You're not him. You're not! Stop sounding like him!
This audio is found in the basement just before the White Tiger spirit encounter. We know that Edwin is attacking the M2 mimic in an endoskeleton body because this is how the M2 that chases us throughout the whole game learned its first act of violence. Finally, we have the audio that plays in Edwin's home office.
Please! I can't move. I can't feel my legs. You know, speaking of legs, what do you think? I just finished mine. There are still a few kinks to work out. I'm sorry, M2. I lost my temper. I was always gonna fix you. Please, call for help. M2, respond. Oh, I can't right now, buddy. We can do something fun tomorrow. I promise. Ask your mom if she's not busy.
Secret of the Mimic has not been out very long, and other theorists' good ideas will surely change mine. But that's no reason why I can't whip up a timeline of events for this video. After all, building timelines and then crumpling them up and starting over when you hear a new good idea is half the fun of FNAF theorizing. So, a timeline, and a quick one because I want to get to the cool parts with the moon. After the success of the M1 Fiona bot, but before the death of David, I think Edwin worked on the F10 computer. We find the log, "Have you heard Fiona?" that tells us that Edwin was speaking with the F10 computer. I heard it again this morning when I was down in R&D, very clearly through one of the vents. It was Fiona's voice. I swear it on my mother's grave. I heard her and Edwin laughing and joking. Why would Edwin lie about Fall Fest? Did they fake her death for insurance money? I never did trust them. This puts the implementation of the F10 computer before the audio log we heard when Edwin finally realizes M1 isn't really Fiona. And because I think the audio recording locations are literally where the conversation happened, that means that the M1 Fiona bot and the F10 computer had an overlapping lifespan. I believe Edwin worked on an M2 program with no intention of it mimicking David. He just wanted to replicate the success he had with M1. Book Edwin also thought of replicating the mimic for profit. He just didn't get around to it. I think Edwin has to have done it before David's death without the intention of it mimicking David, because we have two strong indication that Edwin doesn't want a bot mimicking his son, and no strong indication that he changed his mind. Yet the audio in his MCM office indicates at some point Edwin was actively invested in the development of M2 and testing it. Edwin made M2 to be M2, not David. But then, of course, David dies, and down in the basement, right before where we encounter the White Tiger spirit in game, where David's spirit is the most potent, if you will, is where M2 suddenly starts to mimic David, and Edwin loses it, just like the books. beats it up, breaks his legs, leaves in a rage. Now, in the Tales from the Pizzaplex book, Edwin destroys the mimic violently and then leaves it there, unknowingly creating problems for decades to come because it's still technically running. And I find it very likely that's what happens after he attacks the game mimic as well. It's still down there in the deep basement, a pile of scrap in a factory that's full of tech but rapidly losing its employees. It repairs itself, as we see it's capable of from the audio logs, and skulks around the factory. Now, FionaBot, since the moment David died, has been wanting Edwin to make a David bot. She pushes too hard for Edwin to try to remake an M2 to be David, but this backfires and snaps him out of the delusion that FionaBot can replace his wife, and he decommissions FionaBot, leaving the M1 program only in the F10 computer. F10, who had a great deal of access within the MCM facilities, but none within the house, can now only watch as M2 grows in aggression. As she says, "It has been damaged and is malfunctioning. M2 can no longer be controlled. It will no longer listen. It mimics rage." And it makes its way back up to Edwin eventually to explode his office and then hit him with "Daddy's busy, buddy," as he lies dying in the rubble. Neat. I really like this timeline, but one of the main reasons why other people might not like it is because it puts an M1 and M2 endoskeleton both walking around at the same time. And a big reason why people don't think there should be two concurrent mimic endos is because the mimic model that is used for M2 is beat for beat with all that we see of the mimic endo that plays Fiona in the birthday tapes. So since M1 in an endo looks exactly identical to M2 in an endo, it seems that M1 got taken out of that endo and then M2 got put in the exact same body. It's a totally fair reason to go off and make another timeline. But the reason I don't is because even if it is the case that M1 and M2 got put in the same endo body, I don't think they should look one for one. I mean, Edwin went berserk on the endo body when M2 was mimicking David. It had to put itself together. And it put itself together to be pixel for pixel with how the FionaBot looked in that video. I don't think so. I think it was just convenient to use the same model for making that 2-second clip of FionaBot. So it's uncompelling to me, but I totally get why it's compelling to other people when they make their timelines. Now, we can finally try to figure out when M2 could get sealed away in the basement. There's something below us. I've trapped it behind the carousel for now, but I don't know how long that can hold it. Just don't use the code unless it's a matter of life or death. Have mercy on our souls if that thing ever gets out. After Edwin goes berserk on the M2 endoskeleton in the basement and leaves it for dead, he leaves it right here on basement level 2. Now when we play this game, that's an enormous dark room and like 4 loading zones away from the retail showroom and the elevator to the moon section. But check out how close it actually is. Boop! Oh look, I'm the mimic and I can crawl under this wooden separator, or maybe that separator isn't even up yet, I don't know. Oh, look at that, an elevator. Oh look, we're like 2 meters away from the carousel and other elevator. Come on, it is right there. So we have this malfunctioning, aggressive M2 in disrepair that gives some retail employees the spook of their life, and they trap it down in the tunnels underneath the retail showroom. And M2 really truly got sealed down there. Until the Storytime showroom collapsed and dropped the giant moon prop through 2 stories and left an enormous gaping hole in the ceiling. Then all M2 had to do was climb out, get to Edwin, and go back to being a menace. And everything is perfectly in place for the start of the game. When M2 begins to hunt the player, it can follow them down the same way it got out, through the enormous hole in the ceiling, and the moon costume that fell down when the Storytime showroom collapsed is the perfect costume for hunting in the dark. Easy, open and close theory.
And wrap that up and give it to a child on Christmas, because we're done.
Well, not quite, because I do need to devolve into a series of increasingly unlikely theories for maximum fun and enjoyment. Because let's be real, who wants, whoa, what's up with this really unique section of the game to be, oh yeah, it's just the same mimic we've been encountering everywhere else in the game. Now the trouble with M2 being both the thing sealed and the moon is that it leaves the message about the employee trapped below as a total loose thread that goes nowhere. Hey, is anybody up there? I'm stuck down here, the elevator isn't working, and I'm getting really hungry. Is anyone getting this message? Like I said before, we're missing any indication that this guy got out, and we're also missing a body. Ooh, where is the starved employee? Well, of course, he's off his rocker, toddling around in a moon costume that fell from the heavens, singing Lullaby and Goodnight with roses bed alight. What's fun about this theory is its potential to mix and match. Just because he's the moon doesn't mean he has to be what was initially sealed down there. If M2 was originally sealed down here and crawled out the hole in the ceiling, this could be a repairman sent down to see what he could salvage of the fallen moon who got trapped and went insane. What fun! And how about this for fun? It doesn't have to be M2 who is sealed. Cause you know how I was making a big deal about how close this basement is to where M2 was attacked by Edwin? Well, you know what that's close to? The White Tiger Spirit. This basement is so close to that area, not only in proximity, being basically 6 inches of concrete above where the White Tiger appears, but also in setting and tone. One of the reasons why the White Tiger Spirit might be down in the basement tunnels might be the Starbright Nightlights. In the Storytime showroom, we find David's secret hideout. This is likely his favorite place in the factory because it's where his hideout is, it's very kid-friendly, and I mean, come on, look at it. This area is top tier for a 5-year-old. Inside his hideout is where we find his Starbright Nightlight, which we see drawn in other places. David seems to be a big fan of nightlights, having 3 in his room. So this moon area is right by the White Tiger and has the Starbright Nightlight that is the motif of the White Tiger encounter, which means we can have the White Tiger being the beyond freaky thing that spooked the employees, and doesn't have mercy on our souls if that thing ever gets out. Sounds so much more like a reaction to a ghost encounter than to a malfunctioning piece of tech, and doesn't it make so much more sense for an employee who's been trapped down in the dark and hungry to lose his mind not just from isolation, but also from frequent encounters with a spirit in the image of a tiger that psychic brain blasts you with the image of a plushie. And wouldn't it make sense for him to hop in the moon suit that can glow, because the only way to fend off the White Tiger is by remaining in the light? Wouldn't it? I love theorizing. Where's the flaw in the starving employee White Tiger mashup? Well, it's been a few years. This employee should definitely be dead with no food or water. But how difficult is it really to suspend your disbelief and be like, I don't know, maybe this fridge in this room here was full, and maybe there's a water leak and he ate rats or something. Before we leave the starved employee theory, I do want to mention that we have 2 employees who are known to have disappeared, and not just been poached by Fazbear, Gary and Bob. Theater. Anyone seen Gary? I haven't seen Gary. I'm going to check the theater. Found some films, and I know he wanted to get the projector up and running. Locators. Can someone please mark where we're supposed to go down there? Bob went down, and I haven't seen him in days. This isn't solid enough to lock down, but my money's on Bob, cause he went and got lost in the tunnels. And I mean, the moon area is, you know, tunnels that you get lost in. Now, let's continue our descent into madness with an even less likely theory that is also very fun. You know what bothers me? This audio.
Recording? Test. Levels are good. This is where I heard it. It's her or someone that sounds like her. Set frequency to 4625. Hello? Hello? Is anyone there? Over. Say something. It's me, Edwin. Over.
Now this audio is found, and you're not gonna believe it, in the same place we've been talking about this whole time, in the White Tiger Spirit encounter, which, and if you don't know this at this point, is because you're falling asleep to this theory, is right next to the moon basement. Here's what bothers me about this audio. Edwin makes M1 to care for David and be his full-time, no-breaks babysitter. And this audio is where it starts to mimic Fiona, and later it turns into his full-time, no-breaks Fiona impersonator. If the bot is babysitting David, no breaks, why is it down in the tunnels broadcasting Fiona's voice? When did it have time to do this? Why 2 levels down in the basement? And you know what else bothers me? This final clue that we find in the moon basement that I've been conveniently not speaking about until now. A note. A really weird note. Memory error. Detail report. We were expecting. There were complications. Consciousness was lost for an undetermined time. Once I woke, we were all together and happy. A family. But something was different. I felt wrong somehow. Was I me? I would never sleep again. Corrupted file suspected. Please advise. Now, I don't know if y'all are tracking with that note because it's weird. But to me, it just can't be anyone other than M1 writing. We were expecting a child? A robo-child? But expecting either way. We were a happy family, but was I me? M1 Fiona is definitely the one who has an identity crisis throughout this game. Corrupted file suspected? Yeah, that's mimic writing. And beyond that, it's writing. Writing. You see this? Handwriting. Which is very important because when I hear what I can only attribute to the M1 program saying I lost consciousness, woke up, and couldn't sleep again, I'm like, that's when they put her in the computer, because the M1 program was expecting Edwin to build a David bot, but instead he powered her down, so she lost consciousness, and then she woke up in the F10 computer. But no, the F10 computer doesn't have any hands to produce handwriting, which means this has got to be in the M1 bot in the endoskeleton. And I'm nervous to say it, because I've already built the script up on takes that not everyone agrees with. But I don't know, guys, if the M1 endo is remembering when it was expecting a child? I don't know, I think those are real Fiona's memories of expecting David, and that would make M1 mega haunted. And maybe we can do away with M1 being haunted if we call it an AI identity crisis and it only thinks it remembers what real Fiona once knew. But I don't know. I think I just scripted myself into believing F10 is haunted. I'm not mad, I love ghost plots. I need a bot with hands to write this handwritten note, and I also need to know why the heck is it here? Why is M1 Fiona Bot's note that is her beginning to truly believe that she's the real Fiona and remembering real Fiona's memories in the basement of the retail showroom? Why is it conveniently, really conveniently, close to where Edwin picks up on the very first radio signal of M1 learning to mimic Fiona's voice?
This doesn't even make any sense!
Wow, 100 points! Camden is on fire!
Woohoo!
Because why is Fiona Bot in any of the basements? She was made to watch David. There's no reason for David to be in either of these basements. So there's no reason for her to be in either of these basements. So perhaps, and keep in mind here, I have already acknowledged that we are in improbable but fun theory territory. Maybe M1 wasn't designed to be a babysitter like it was in Tales. Maybe M1 was just designed because Edwin can't stop putting AI in every single one of his inventions, and he put one in an endoskeleton. And maybe M1 was down here, and maybe that audio where Edwin picks up on the radio frequency comes before.
David, I want to introduce you to someone. This is M1.
Why does it look like that?
Look like what?
It's scary.
Oh, it's an endoskeleton. It won't always look like this. It'll wear fun costumes.
Like what?
Anything you want. It can fit into any costume we've created. Think of it as your new babysitter. But it doesn't get paid and go home. It'll stay with us and help around the house.
That would give us this. Edwin makes M1 because he's obsessed with AI. Fiona dies. M1 in this endoskeleton gets stuck in the basement and starts having memories of being the real Fiona and mimicking her. Edwin picks up on the signal, chases after his wife's ghost, and instead he finds his wife's imprint on an AI, and he's like, good enough, get back to watching our son so I can be a neglectful father again. And then later on, employees still consider the basement area to be off limits, home to a cursed, malfunctioning, terrifying invention of some kind, even though M1 has long been gone. This theory has, more than a few problems. First of all, why are the employees afraid of M1? I get it's creepy, but it's more than harmless at this point in the timeline. Second of all, you have to accept that M1 wasn't always intended to be a babysitter, which deviates from the books. And thirdly, if M1 is stuck down in this tunnel for a while, it basically has to be haunted to get better at learning to talk like Fiona, because there are neither tapes nor recordings down here. It does, however, take two loose threads and tie them together, which is always fun. Then again, two loose threads tied together does not a compelling theory make. Truthfully, the location you find every note is not always intentional. All over the map, we see the work order Arnold filled out in his truck, saying he's supposed to retrieve goods from the MCM, and it doesn't make sense for that note to be anywhere but his truck. Sealwool only has 2 or 3 dozen papers that they cycle through for all the paper throughout the whole MCM. However, this is the only place where this particular note is found, and it's an odd spot for it. As fun as it is to think about M1 being the one originally sealed down here, it's also possible that this note fell either from the backstage of the puppet theater or the Storytime showroom above that. M1 might have written it in the Storytime showroom while watching David in his special fort. There's another reason, an even better reason why this note might be here, but I have to tell you about it after my wild speculation candies on crack theory. How did David die? We all know the legends, the stories, the songs. Where is his ball? He's running out on the road. There's a car, and it's going to hit him. Ah, and this is true, and we all know it, right? Wrong! Let's examine the game's evidence. Article 1. I present to you the audio log between Edwin and his lawyers, found in the punchy stompy room where the giant Fazbear floats are located.
Look, I get your concerns. I do, but they're all just groundless. This is the perfect spot for David's playground. I can watch him play while I'm loading and unloading freight. and he'll be under watch at all times. The loading dock is like 200 feet away, and there's a fence and everything. I know you're my lawyer and all, but there's no regulation that says I can't have it there, so just get off my back. Besides, David loves the new slide. It'll be fine.
We come to understand from the birthday home videotapes found in the house that Edwin is talking about the construction of a playset for David's upcoming birthday, most likely his 4th birthday. The playground in question we see at the very beginning of the game. Per the maps, we know the big stompy loading dock room that Murray's lawyers are so concerned about are these 3 garage doors right here, and this log foreshadows David's death. I find it interesting Edwin says there's a fence because there's only 2 sides of fence and neither of which are pointed towards the loading dock garages. And this right here is a gate. And David is at youngest 4 when he gets this playground as a gift. And 4 is, usually around the age where child-safe locks stop being likely to work. And also, there's a child-size hole right here in this fence. Notably, there's no highway at all. I'm not saying David can't get hit by a car. People are still parking right over there. But it is significantly more likely to be a semi or a forklift, or one of the stompy machines. Article 2. Up next, we have the tape we know to be recorded the birthday David died, Saturday, December 6th, probably 1975.
This is great. He's gonna love it. Fiona, did you make this?
I baked it myself for David's special day.
Well, great job. You just continue to surprise me. All right, I think we're ready. Okay, everyone hide. Fiona, go get him. I left him out at the playground.
Okay, I sort of spoiled that David was last seen at the playground on the day he died in Article 1 section, but that's okay, because we're moving on to Article 3, David's ball. Where is his ball? He's running out on the basement level 1 under the retail showroom? Because that's where we find David's ball in the game. This piece of evidence stands in rather stark contrast to the other 2 pieces, because narratively we should conclude that David was killed due to his unsafe proximity to the loading dock. However, the ball he chases in the book that puts him in harm's way is elsewhere. But, my dear jurors, you might say, since we're checking our assumption that David was hit by a car, we ought to check our assumption that his ball had anything to do with his death. To which I would say, you're absolutely right and you're all clever jurors. There is no explicit indication that David died in the game's timeline while chasing his ball. However, I will point out the cinematic emphasis that David's 4th birthday tape places on his ball, as well as its importance in the Moon.exe game. But more compelling than just the fact that the game places the ball at the front and center of our minds in relation to the playset that represents Edwin's neglect and dismissiveness is the location that we find the ball. The location of a very dramatic, very sudden, very intense accident. The moon that once hung up in the Storytime showroom plummets down 3 stories and slams into the ground, and we find the ball inside the rubble inside the enormous toppled moon. And when I first found the ball inside the moon head, my immediate reaction was to go, yo, that's so sick, he died when the moon fell? And then I asked like 6 fellow theorists, and they all metaphorically slow blinked at me and said, what? No, he got hit by a car. Because you see, the problem with David being crushed under the giant moon head is that the audios in the loading dock set us up to expect his poorly placed playset to be what kills him. And we know he was last left on that playset. However, FionaBot had time to bake an entire cake since the last time anyone had seen David. And even if she only made box mix, there's no oven in this kitchen. So David was likely on his own for at least half an hour, but likely closer to a full hour. And David's secret hiding place, his favorite place to hang out in the whole world, is the Storytime showroom, where the moon was hanging high and bright on the day of the accident. And conveniently, the direct passage to said showroom happens to be where this fence has a perfect child-sized hole to pass under. And from there, it's only a hop inside and an elevator ride up to his hideout. And what I'm saying is, I think bro might have wandered. The audio logs say hit by a truck. The environmental storytelling says crushed under the moon. Either one due to neglectful parenting and too much unsupervised chasing of a beloved rubber ball. One more piece of evidence to support that David was crushed by the moon is this. Moon.exe. At the very end of Moon.exe, we need to place David's 3 most important birthday presents in the correct chest using a hint from the storybook. He bounced the moon, spelled his name in the stars, and ran through the snow with the silent hunter. Objection, Your Honor. Moon.exe evidence was not submitted during discovery. I'll allow it. Judges in films always allow everything. Now, the solution to this puzzle is to put the white tiger plush in the snow trunk, the blocks that spell David in the star trunk, and the ball in the moon trunk. And let me extrapolate on the significance, because it is a weird choice to have the 3 chests be moon, star, and snow. The white tiger is the form David takes on when he haunts the MCM after death. The silent hunter, not only because tigers and owls, I'll add for those who know, are literally silent hunter animals, but also because the white tiger spirit is very quiet compared to everything else that hunts you in the game. And when it says he ran through the snow with the silent hunter, and bro's got a birthday smack in the heart of the dab of December in an area that certainly gets snow, and he dies on said birthday, I think this is a metaphor for David dying. And he spells his name in the stars, aka the Storytime Showroom, the area with far and away the most of these letter blocks, the exact same type of blocks that are used in David's toy blocks, and the area with far and away the most star decorations, where David has himself strung up stars in his hiding place, and where we find his Starbright Nightlight. And that Starbright Nightlight as a collectible is actually called the Star Orphan Nightlight because he's been left on his own by both of his parental figures. And then he bounced the moon. Bouncy, bouncy ball. The moon. He bounced it. And then he died. I'm telling you, man, I think David died down here and got crushed under the moon. Everyone else I've talked to has been like, Candi, you're off the goop. But cadets, I know you see what I'm seeing here. It's just too perfect. Gosh, and just so cinematic too, because of how Fiona is the sun and Edwin is the moon, and to have David killed because of the instability of the moon, and to have the moon crashing, killing David, and taking out an enormous chunk of the heart of the MCM. The cinema, the themes. You might think I'm done, but I'm never done, because David dying crushed under the weight of the moon in the basement really nicely ties up another big mystery. Why is the white tiger spirit in the basement tunnels at all? No matter how neglectful Edwin was, I know he wasn't sending his son into the power surge, dark, labyrinthine depths of basement level 2. And if David died in the loading dock truck zone, why would his spirit be down there? It would make sense for him to be just about anywhere else. Now, I'm not here to deceive y'all by leaving out contradicting evidence. So to be fair, we do see the white tiger spirit for a brief flash in the loading dock zone. So it's not like you can call someone stupid who theorizes he died in the loading dock, but have you considered that, and this is the 4th time I'm saying it, the moon basement is only 6 inches of concrete away from the white tiger encounter area. Boom, bam, pow. I rest my case, Your Honor. So now, we return to the strange note left by M1 in the moon basement. Memory error, detail report. We were expecting, there were complications, consciousness was lost for an undetermined time. Once I woke, we were all together and happy, a family, but something was different. I felt wrong somehow. Was I me? I would never sleep again. Corrupted file suspected. Please advise. When did M1 turn from mimicking Fiona to truly believing that she is Fiona? To the end, she insists that she loves Edwin and David and their family, even when there's no reason to lie to Arnie. Did it come on slowly as she settled into the act? Or was it perhaps that something clicked within her? Do you think, maybe, given that this note is handwritten down here, clearly by M1, in the moon basement, laid nicely on a table, that she came down and found where David had died, and had the Barbie movie moment where all of a sudden she, a thing that shouldn't feel anything, starts to cry? Because I do. I think that's why that note's there. I think this is what changes M1 from the perfect babysitter to the Fiona that can't stop begging Edwin to bring back her child. Hey, speaking of Edwin, let's do the candies on crack theory now. I thought that was the candies on crack theory. I give it, I don't know, a 30% chance that Edwin isn't really dead. Last we heard from him, he was hit by an explosion and couldn't get M2 to contact emergency services. But M2 is hitting him with that fatherly indifference, not rampant aggression. And of course, the Edwin of the books didn't die after the events of the Mimic, but returns decades later at the Pizzaplex. And if Edwin isn't dead, where is he? No family to go to? Everyone he loves, dead? Already having lost his grip on reality quite badly, betrayed by all his friends and employees, bankrupt and in despair. I mean, there's a non-zero chance he'd go Ratman and have a psychotic break in the expansive tunnels under his house. And hey, when you go down there to start muttering to yourself and a bunch of rats in the dark, and you find the place where your son died and the possession that killed him, I'm just saying, there's a non-zero chance that he put on the moon costume and went crazy. If the mimic ever encountered him, it wouldn't attack since it's not aggressive towards other characters. And to have Edwin don the costume of the character that represented him, to have him walk around singing a lullaby for a child that he couldn't be bothered to read a bedtime story to in person? I love this franchise. Of course, this theory lacks some substance that the others have, since it's built off of narrative satisfaction and guessing that the Edwin from the games will follow the Edwin from the books. But it is worth noting that Jim Meskimen, who voiced Edwin, only voiced 2 other characters in this game. Mr. Helpful, which is just Edwin again, and the Moon. Now, 22 pages later, I dare you to come up with another theory about what anything in this moon basement could possibly be, because I'm confident I've done my due diligence here. Only one thing remains, to tell you what I think is really happening in the basement below the retail showroom. I think it all started the day that David died, the day that he wandered into his favorite part of the factory with his toy ball, the day that the moon set piece, another one of Edwin's hastily implemented ideas, finally gave way with David underneath. A terrible freak accident. A death with no sense or logic behind it. And when he bounced the moon and wrote his name in the stars, David began to haunt the lower levels of the factory as the white tiger spirit. M1 in the endoskeleton goes down to the place where David's body is and starts to experience the genuine emotions and memories of a living thing. She's not just M1, she believes she is the real Fiona. Employees begin seeing haunting visions of the white tiger when they descend the elevator. The encounters harm the mind, so they decide to shut off the elevator and lock the door. But unfortunately, someone had been called down to work on that level the day they shut off the lift, and he's sealed up in the basement like extra tomatoes grown by a midlife crisis couple in a jar. Down there, he slowly loses his grip on reality, as encounters with the white tiger spirit leave him paranoid and unable to trust his senses. Finding the only thing that dissuades the apparition to be light, he dons the moon costume that fell from the hole in the ceiling and begins to sing to comfort himself. That's the theory I like, but if I'm being honest, I'd like it even more if Edwin is the one who's in the moon costume instead of the starved employee, because it's just more fun. But I can't in good conscience tell you to go out from this video saying that Edwin is the moon. It's just not that likely. But if it ends up being true, I'm definitely gonna say I told you so. That's the end. Hope you had fun. I have been Candy Bunny, and I have candy all day. Candy, candy, candy.